Mental illness and motor insurance. Much has been written about mental illness and driving, particularly the possibly increased risk of accident. There is, however, little awareness of how this affects insurance premiums. It is well known that as a result of recent losses within the business, premiums were increased by 30% last year and may be set to rise higher. This has made insuring a car a major part of the cost of running one. It appears that people with mental illnesses are being unfairly treated by motor insurance and therefore financially disadvantaged. It was first made aware of this problem by my involvement in a case. A woman in her 20s suffered a postnatal depression following the birth of her first child. She was an inpatient on a mother and baby unit for 3 months and was discharged to her home taking an antidepressant. At around this time, she and her husband applied for motor insurance through an insurance broker. The application form included a question about past or present physical or mental illness. This was completed honestly and the reason illness was declared. The company asked for a report from the physiatrist involved. These reports were very positive and even went so far as to say that the patient was, in the doctor's opinion, fit to drive. Soon afterwards, the insurance company decided to terminate the policy. No explanation was given to the prospective policyholder, but the broker made some informal inquiries of the company, who gave two reasons. First, as the proposer had been admitted to hospital, she had obviously been seriously depressed. Second, she might feel suicidal and so drive in an intentionally reckless way. Both these points seem disputable. Admission to hospital doesn't necessarily imply a particular severity of illness, as many other factors must be considered. Also, there is evidence that suicide rates are low in the first year after childbirth, despite the high rate of pediatric morbidity. Wondered if thinking of this kind was typical of motor insurers. To investigate this, I wrote to several large insurance companies asking about their attitude to mental illness and their policies in this area. 5 companies replied. 3 said that they would insure anyone to whom the driver vehicle licensing authority had issued a license. They would seek information from various sources, proposer's doctor, company medical referee, or independent doctor, and might impose restriction or additional term. 2 companies differed significantly from the rest. Company A stated in a letter, whilst we do not profess to be expert in the field of mental illness, we would normally decline any new proposal from a person currently suffering from a mental illness and leave this risk to companies more experienced in this area of the market. For existing customers who develop mental illness, they try to be more accommodating. They refer to obtaining details and then adjusting the situation by cross-referencing with statistics produced by various governing bodies and literature contained in well-established medical journals. I wrote further letters attempting to clarify some of these points but received no reply. Company Bay wrote, as a general rule, however, we, as with most other insurers, specifically exclude new proposers suffering from any physical or mental disability. They too are more tolerant of existing policyholders and try to look at each case on its own merits. In response to another letter, they define mental disability as where a patient is currently receiving medication or is generally receiving medical supervision or is currently suffering from a known illness. Research in this area covers two main topics: the direct effect of mental illnesses and the effect of prescribed drugs. The literature on medication is relatively large. There is much discussion about how best to test the effect of drugs. Should experiment use healthy volunteers or real patients? Are laboratory tests valid or are low-speed vehicle handling tests essential? There is good evidence that many drugs prescribed by physiatrists impair driving, but no indication of how this compares to the impairment caused by a legal 79 milligrams per cent of alcohol. Silverstone 1988 has reviewed the influence of mental illness on driving performance. He concludes, it does appear that physiatric patients taken overall have a higher than expected rate of involvement in RTAs, road traffic accident, but certain conditions are disproportionately represented, and by no means all types of physiatric patients are potentially hazardous behind the wheel. He finds evidence for increased accident rates in dementia, anxiety state, personality disorders, and alcoholism. There seems to be no evidence of increased risk in schizophrenia or illicit drug abuse. In the case of depression, things are much less clear. As Silverstone states, it is easy to see how those suffering from severe depression might be at risk in two ways. Their slowed responsivity and poor concentration put them at risk from a car handling point of view, while their suicidal ideation may cause them to crash their car in an attempt to end their lives. His conclusion from the literature is that there may be association between depression and road traffic accident. In reviewing largely the same literature, Suang et al. 1985 failed to find evidence for a significant role of suicidal motivation in traffic accidents, but didn't address the issue of depression in the absence of suicidal intent. Armstrong and Whitlock 1980 found that vehicular suicide is more often caused by alcohol and drugs than by severe depression. There is a broad consensus in the literature that alcohol use is of far more importance than any other form of physiatric illness. It is unclear whether this already tentative finding apply to the whole spectrum of depressive illnesses or should be restricted to severe depression. There are some comparisons to be drawn with physical illnesses. The extensive literature on driving and physical illness focus on epilepsy and diabetes mellitus. People with epilepsy probably have more traffic accidents, although this is not proven. American authors wrote, although insurance is generally available to persons with epilepsy, the cost may high and coverage limited. A British study asked patients with diabetes about their experience of insurance. Of 147 drivers, 96 had informed their insurer of their diabetes. Of these, 14 had been refused motor insurance because of diabetes, and 36 were aware of an increase in premiums. Problems of this kind are clearly not restricted to mental illness. What are we to think of insurance companies who reject all proposals with any kind of mental illness? To define mental illness so broadly and to regard it as a uniform source of risk is clearly not justified by the research evidence. Similar attitudes exist toward some physical illnesses, but at least these conditions are more specifically defined and so likely to affect fewer people. More research could alter attitudes in this area, but unlike previous work, it might be ignored or selectively interpreted. The Association of British Insurers regard the operation of a very selective underwriting policy as commercial decision for each company to make totally personal. It is the responsibility of the individual driver to inform the driver and vehicle licensing agency of any relevant disability. Thank you.